Welcome to another day of Ether Raids. We are taking on a rematch here against Taru because he did the Lin thing, and like I said, I will rematch if you do the Lin thing. So we're keeping true to our word, or at least I am. I don't know about the rest of you, but that's what we're doing today. And a little bit difficult to get out here because of the terrain and the blockages. Ideal positioning for the fortress. That's really where you want to have that placed if you're laying out your team like this, because it makes it a little bit more difficult to go up through the sides. It forces you to have to go up through the sides, essentially. And not great for me, but we will get there. We'll make it work somehow. It's totally fine. Very similar to my layout in a lot of ways, but also still different. There's a few gaps here that can be exploited if you have the right team composition, but still very similar to what I got for this this season, which I'm probably going to change because yeah, Lin just isn't that great, at least not by herself. I think you need at least two of them for it to work properly. You need to have two Lins on the team for it to work properly. Ideally not color sharing, and I don't think you can fit that particular criteria currently in the game. I don't think you're ever going to be able to do that, because basically what you would need is that both of the units would need to cover the same range and be able to initiate on the same turn, and that's not how the Lin ring works, so that's just not going to happen. So yeah, ultimately the experiments with Lin on defense, I think it's pretty much over. I mean, if that's what you got, cool, but I'm pretty much done with it. Don't think I'm going to be rocking that after this week. I'll try to come up with something else and work with that from there on out. And also, yeah, I think we're going to get I have a high suspicion, because we've had Rune for some time now, and he's been given the that mechanic on offense. So I think it's about time that we got the defense version of that. So I think we're going to get that extra slot on defense at the end of this month for Dark Season. I think they might give us that extra slot on Anima as well on defense. I don't think we're going to get a Astra Mythic. Just speculation. But then also it could just be one Mythic. I mean, who knows? But I feel like it's going to be Anima and Dark. That's my thoughts on the matter. To unlock the secret slot. Or maybe it's a legendary and a mythic. I don't know. Could be. But I feel like since it's a mythic, we're definitely going to get one of them. If it's two, or if it's just one, I think it's definitely going to be one of them is going to be Dark. And then the other one, Anima. I don't know, but we're getting that extra slot on defense. It's been a while, and I feel like it's about time that I feel like it's about time for us to be able to test out how that functions on defense. I've been thinking about it for quite a bit as well, in terms of like what unit, like for defense in particular, do you want in that extra slot? And I was thinking maybe a dancer, because you get two dances, assuming it functions in the same way where you get the extra action. But then also, this is turn 3 we're talking about, and a lot of people are still doing that Lin thing, so you might not have any units left on turn 3 for your defense to actually do stuff. So, just thinking about it like that, you're going to want someone, if not a dancer, that can, potentially Wings of Mercy, or just cover, like, 3 space movement dancer, cover, be able to reach, whatever unit move, let's say it's an armor or something, but then even that doesn't really help you out, because it's an armored unit. They're not going to really initiate unless they have Celica Ring, so it doesn't do much for you in terms of chasing down the opposing team. So yeah, not the greatest. I wouldn't recommend that in terms of, like, I'm opting to not go with a dancer. And the only reason is because of the fact that you can clear out so much of the offensive threat or of the offensive team by turn 3. So yeah, and just thinking maybe it's best to not go with a dancer. But then also, if your saves are doing their job, then there is potential for a dancer to, you know, be beneficial for you. But then if you're running like a low block and that dancer pops out, that might put them in a position that doesn't really work in your favor. So that's also something that we got to test. Whew. Yeah, that's also something that we're gonna have to test as well, just to see how that will affect positioning, whether or not the dancer can be baited, because that affects your threat range. There's a lot to think about for defense when it comes to this extra slot, particularly because it's not going to be locked by the, you know, that 7th slot mechanic where the 7th slot unit doesn't move, and it forces your dancer to dance that 7th slot mechanic. And then, you know, it doesn't impact that. Which means that that unit, the 8th unit now, can pop out and then dance that 7th slot unit, or even attack, depending on what the situation is. So you might not want that on defense. So yeah, I was initially thinking dancer, but then lately I've been thinking maybe that's not the greatest idea in the world. So I've been moving over to thinking that maybe we should just go with like a melee unit. And if you're going with a melee unit instead of range, and I'm thinking melee instead of range because
sure I can.
Gale Force. There aren't very many ranged units that get an extra action aside from Lift, and the ones that, you know, are in the game aren't that great. Thinking Golveg. The reason I'm saying Golveg is because she will most likely die in retaliation. So you probably don't want that. She's probably not going to get the most. You're probably not going to get the most out of her in that particular scenario, depending on who the opponent has exposed. So maybe no Golveg, which means melee. And if I'm thinking melee cav more than likely instead of infantry, because infantry is less like 2 movement, and then melee cav you can potentially get 4. Looking at Seliph, for instance, obvious recommendation would be Sigurd in that situation, because of course he can cover so much ground. But I'm thinking Seliph because it will give Seliph some amount of usability, or what's the word? Yeah, usability, because he's totally shafted from that refine. So essentially, he would be able to function in a way similar to to Emblem Sigurd, because he can run him with momentum and get the AoE off. So that's an idea. Basically, he would just move 4 spaces and then be able to attack. And I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to take something out, especially if it's against someone that's using a Lin composition team. Those team compositions typically don't have a frontliner, so it's highly unlikely that you're going to face a lot of bulk with someone like Seliph. So that's my initial idea. So he'll run in Gale Force, and you're at least going to get 1 kill off of that, because that's 1 action move, 2nd action attack and take someone. But if you want more actions, then Felix or Sigurd would really be your best bet, because 1 action move, that's 5 spaces for Sigurd, and then he will definitely get, you know, both of those extra actions by his AoE Gale Force thing. So you're definitely going to be able to take out more enemy units on that 3rd turn if you put Sigurd in that slot. But it's up to you. I personally probably won't go with Sigurd because I feel like I've utilized him so much already on Dark Season. I want to give someone a chance that I just haven't been able to use, and that's really where my mindset is. So I'm thinking Seliph for that particular reason. So Seliph will be able to do that. You don't get as many KOs, but I mean, he does a job. And then same with Felix. Felix moves. Well, Felix would probably be able to get the furthest, no? Especially if we equip him with the Celica ring. And then he can also run Gale Force, so you get a bunch of KOs that way as well. So I'm thinking melee initiator, especially melee cav, is probably the best way to go about it. The only concern is whether or not their effects are active on the same turn that they pop out. And I think it probably will be. Like, I haven't tested it for the offensive version. If, like, Seliph pops out with his +1 movement, That's what I want to find out. I mean, Felix pops out with his
Mustn't get lost.
his stuff, but his stuff isn't really. Does he pop out with the +1 movement? I think he does. I'm not sure, because a lot of those effects are like start a turn, start a phase. So depending on when it happens, if it's like after that, it might not work in your favor. But assuming it does, then you're more than likely going to be able to get more done with some type of cav melee initiator. Flyers, depending on your map layout, yeah, cool. But I think calves might be where it's at. Not to say that the infantry units wouldn't be able to do a similar role, but most infantry units these days have some type of units within X amount of space condition. Not a lot of infantry units can just go across the map and then take something out and then just sit there, thinking about even the new Ike, for instance. He has a 3x3 weapon requirement that requires for him to have a couple of units within 3 spaces. So by the time that the rest of the units he's going to be isolated for, let's say you take out someone and the opponent has to do something on the following turn, because Ike or most of the infantry units have some type of speed condition. Being solo makes them more susceptible to being doubled. So whereas for a cav, most calves have at least cancel 1-2 depending on what's in their weapon or in their B skill or wherever it may be, special, whoever knows. So you're really looking at an infantry unit who's more than likely going to go over there and get stuck, take out one unit, get stuck, or unless they're gale forcing. The infantry units are more. You can set it up. You can set it up so that an infantry unit will gale force more consistently. There's that aspect of it, but there just aren't that many infantry units that are just like great omni tanks, like completely solo by themselves. So yeah, I really think calves, melee calves, are probably the way to go, especially like someone like Alphonse. That could be a big role for him, although I don't think he would get a lot of his great talent stuff. So that's maybe a no. But yeah, melee calves is what I'm thinking, especially because of that Kanto that they would have. If you can get Golvig to work, I think Golvig is really the best unit for that role, because there's no way that she's not going to take out something and then get the additional action. So I'm really thinking Golvig is the best person for that role, or someone that can initiate warping. So like young Emerin or Tana that recently came out. Those are like really some of the ones that I think would be the best for the role, because they allow your entire team to just be more mobile, and that's a great thing. You really want that. So yeah, that's like my main idea. Probably gonna do it. Can't wait to test it out, see how it functions. And what I'll probably do, I want to have like a rotating cast. I don't want to always have that same unit in the slot. I want to have, because it's essentially another way to get more units from your barracks into gameplay and see how they perform. So I'm trying to see like who the best characters are, and then how they would fit into that role, and who I haven't really been using, just to get some more fun out of them. So definitely want to try that out. Definitely excited to try it out. Really hoping for a dark and an anima version of it, just to have some more fun. But GG's, this match is over. See you in the next one. Okay, we're taking on Easy, I don't know, 58 something. And we're gonna Edelgard this, because I don't get to use this Edelgard team quite as much as I would like to, so as I've said before. And also I'm pretty sure this is, kind of on the latter half of viability. This is really downtrend from here on out, primarily because Edelgard is the initiator and things are just getting so much bulkier that she's it's unlikely that she's going to be able to continue as an initiator for much longer, especially into the armored units that we have in the game currently. She takes out like 0 of them. None of them she doesn't take out. So yeah, But for the time being, Edelgard it is. We're gonna just do stuff with Edelgard here. I already have a game plan in mind. It's just I don't know who I'm gonna pin because Yoon has the silica ring, and that makes trapping her a lot more difficult. So yeah, I'm gonna try to figure that out as we go along, and then take it from there. Nino here, I don't know about swapping out her weapon. I think her weapon is still pretty cracked.
Right, you are.
But I guess Arcane Tempest isn't the worst thing in the world. But yeah, that's the game plan. Aside from that, I did want to talk a bit more about the Lagoo's loyalty thing. And I was looking at it, like I was literally just staring. So I did go back in, like I said I would, on that banner. And I was finally able to get an extra copy of Ike, and I think I still want one more because I want to do something dumb, but then I don't want to regret it afterwards. And also, like, all of my fodder banks are pretty much full. I can't do anything with them, or not full, used. So I can't do anything with them until, they come back around. So that's, RIP on my part. So yeah, I kind of want to, if I'm unable to get another one, which would really, really suck. I don't think I can go too hard on any other banners until the Mythic banner comes out in a month, and that's going to be tough on its own. I do have some orbs left over, so I'm going to bank on that. See if I can farm the remaining orbs that I have in the store. I think I have 130 or something from just the story maps and stuff. So I'm going to farm those for the Mythic banner and make those work. But yeah, just looking at the Lagoo's thing, worst case scenario, I have 2 Ikes. I might end up foddering both of them. Worst case scenario, because he's not that great as a one-off copy. I don't think. Yes, he's another unit that has no counter disrupt in his special. Just has it overall, and I think that's really, really valuable. Downside: merges and investment, and minus HP, minus res. Those are the IVs that I have. So if anything, I'd probably keep the plus speed one, which is minus HP, but not the greatest. I really don't like that drawback on the HP. So I don't know. Trade fruits, yes, but is it worth it? I'd probably fodder him for him to come back around in a double special heroes, and then figure it out from there.
Which path to take?
Yeah, ideally, I'd want one more, but I don't know if I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it to make that work, unfortunately. But I was able to get everything on the banner except Malice, which I actually really wanted a copy of Malice. I would keep her as a one-off. I think she has more value than the Ike. If I don't know, personal preference perhaps. I also was able to finally get a copy of Neathhogger after at least 500 orbs wasted just to get a blue unit, which is crazy. But yeah, finally got that copy. I'm eventually going to fodder New Year's Neathhogger to Tree Man because he could potentially have some amount of longevity for defense in Dark Season in comparison to Formortis. I think he might age kind of similarly to Formortis, depending on the armored skills that we get. So I'm thinking that the C skill in particular is great for him. If you want to run him as a far save. I don't think he's the greatest far save, but I think it works for at least a little bit. So that's my idea. We'll see how far that goes. I think the fodder overall will probably perform really well on him. And worst case scenario, I use him as a near saver, so it works out either way. So yeah, that is success. But Lagoo's loyalty. So I was looking at it, and while it is miles better than Spurn, the Spurn line of skills, it's miles better because all of that damage reduction is pierceable, right? That's 50% of nothing, essentially, is what you're getting. You probably get the +7. Essentially, all you're getting is +7 speed, Phantom, and I think there's a AoE damage reduction and -4 speed defense. Well,
Which path?
it depends on which one,
Right.
because Spurn has +5 true damage, I believe, and then, you know, Repel has that knockback effect, and so on and so forth. So there are variations, but ultimately, all of that damage reduction is pierceable, and you're coming up against a ton of nukes that are able to just either pierce half of your damage reduction or all of your damage reduction, which pretty much means you have nothing, even though by stacking it you can get like up to like 75, 80. If you stack it right with external supports and stuff, you can get a ton. So half of 80 is 40. Still not that great. You're better off getting the had to do a cut there, sorry. You're better off getting the flat damage reduction from Lagu's loyalty.
This way.
So essentially, basically, why did I say that? It's the same thing. It's basically building diamonds, base diamonds. You're making, so any unit that you give that skill to, that B skill to, is going to perform or kind of be a little bit similar to base Diamant when he first came out. And the main problem with Diamant is that, yes, he has a ton of flat damage reduction, but ultimately he dies really, really easily. He gets blown up really easily. So there just wasn't enough flat damage reduction on that base Diamant for it to actually matter. And then we got Ike, and you see how stacking that flat damage reduction can be a great thing. And I think we've gotten to a point in the game where we have enough avenues, or that's not the word, options for flat damage reduction for it to work. So you get 12 from, you can get like a potential 12 from the Lagu skill. I'm turning on the effect here because I'm going to need this. Dual button. So yeah, you get 12 from the...
We mustn't get lost.
You can potentially get 12 from the Lagu's Loyal. That's flat damage reduction. Then you get an additional amount of X amount of flat damage reduction from Excel. Gust also is an additional X amount of flat damage reduction. So there's 1 to 3 sources of flat damage reduction that you're getting. And then you can outsource an additional 10 from, let's say, Neathauger. No. Hathrun. You can get an additional 10 from Hathrun, get an additional 10 from the Stone Terrain, so 12 and 20,
Yes.
that's 32, plus 2 other sources. That's a lot of flat damage reduction that you can get when you're combining all of these effects. It's just a matter of whether or not you can actually figure it out to make it work on a unit. Not to mention, well, I was gonna say Pavis or Godlike Reflexes. You know, those are kind of similar to Gust in a way, but offensive, defensive, yeah, blah blah blah. But it really stacks up. But it really depends on the unit. Not every unit is going to be able to use that skill properly. I think it's great for Diamant in particular because that's something that he can really just it stacks on him. It works really well. But there aren't that many units in the game that actually will be able to use this Lagu's loyalty skill to its fullest potential outside of the new Ike that it's on. But yeah, let's test it out some more.